We just finished a month in Lisbon, and we want to share 3 things with you: what we did, where we stayed, and all the things we ate.
In case you don't know who we are, I'm Caroline Zook. This is my husband, Jason Zook. We own a business together called Wandering Aimfully. It's an unboring coaching program for intentional online business owners. And this year we are traveling full-time.
Also, just a little caveat here, if you're looking for a historical video about Lisbon, this is not it. This is just our experience. Go find Uncle Rick Steves. He'll give you all the facts and history that you need. This is just the time that we spent, the things we did, and we're gonna share it all with you.
First up, what we did in Lisbon, Portugal.
All right, the first thing we want to share is the thing that you pretty much always see when you watch a Lisbon video, and that is the Praça do Comércio, which is this big open square that actually happened to be right behind our first Airbnb. And it's just a really fun place to walk around. You get to see the statue, you get to see an arch. It's just a nice open space.
You do get quite a bit of tourists, which is totally fine though. There's a reason why it's a tourist attraction. I think it's a really good first stop to just kind of get your lay of the land, and it definitely feels like I'm officially in Lisbon.
The next thing we did a lot of, which is natural after you're in that giant square, is just to walk around. Lisbon is the city of 7 hills. I know I said we weren't gonna give you all historical facts, but it is a ton of hills. And on one of those hills, you find the Santa Justa lift, which we didn't go up, but we did walk by multiple times, and it looks nice. I mean, you can see lots of things from up there, I'm sure, but we just saw it and walked by it.
Yeah, there's also plenty of, I think they're called, don't quote me on this, but miradouros. So they're kind of these like lookout points. You'll see signs to plenty of them if you're just walking around and trying to get lost in different neighborhoods. That's one of my favorite things about the city, is you have these little kind of green areas where you can get away from the hustle and bustle of the city, and you just look out onto these amazing lookout points, and you can see the river, you can see the full city.
Honestly, some of our best memories were walking to the grocery store, and we would go up this hill, we'd be completely winded because we're not on a lot of hills normally, but you just find these little alleyways that you would look down, and it's just this perfect picturesque European street, just little cute cars and balconies.
Trams going by. We didn't do the tram.
We didn't do the tram, but we saw it many times. Just like the lift, you can see all these things, you don't have to actually get inside of them to enjoy them.
Our big sightseeing day, where we did see a ton of stuff, was we just hopped in an Uber down the river, and we started off at the Belém Tower, which was very fun to see. It's this beautiful tower that was built to basically, I think, welcome sailors into Portugal. Again, we don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll put a fun fact up, I'm not sure.
No fun facts around here. Again, we're not, that's Uncle Rick Steves' job. But I will say I had a really fun moment where I got to take a hyperlapse walking around. I'm super proud of this like short video clip that I took. It's like 5 seconds long, but it's just a really cool place to be. And it's like you're walking along the river, and then all of a sudden this building just juts out of the water. So it was fun to see.
At one point there was a man playing violin in front of it. And I had this like very emotional moment of just seeing this beautiful piece of architecture and history, the beautiful music playing. I think I may have shed a tear, just kind of like, oh, we're here. We're at this like amazing place. So it was definitely a fun start to our sightseeing day. From the Belém Tower, it was just a little short walk over to the, please forgive me, but the Pedral dos Descobrimentos.
I'm gonna give you a big round of applause because I'm not gonna try it. So sorry any Portuguese speakers, we're just gonna try our best.
But this statue of discoveries and celebrating all of the explorers and the discoveries of many of the people of Portugal. And I will just tell you, it's an awe-inspiring statue.
Yeah, well, there's 33 people depicted on it, different explorers, and they're enormous. I mean, really the grandeur of the people in the monument themselves, you could tell everybody was kind of standing around just like looking at the size of people. So it was a really cool statue. And then the big compass, which pointed in all the different directions that the explorers supposedly went on to go exploring. And yeah, it was just a really nice little walk. And then from there, it's like 5 more minutes down the river to the Mat, which is an architecture museum. We didn't even go inside the museum. We're just not big museum people, but it's just got a really cool shape to it. And it was fun to kind of walk next to it. And the building has these like white scales. You can go on top and you get a really cool view of the bridge, which is really fun. And just like a really nice walk on the river.
Yeah, beautiful. After we visited the Mat, we headed over to the LX factory. Now this was a longer walk, but it's totally walkable. And we actually enjoyed it. It was a beautiful day. The weather here in Lisbon is incredible. So the LX factory is this really cool street. It's kind of these old warehouses that have all been converted into these markets for artists and different shop owners and restaurants. And it's a very artsy district and there's a lot to see and do there. So that was worth the trek for sure. One thing we did that I'm not sure I would recommend, maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't.
It's not really a Lisbon itinerary item most people are gonna have.
But it's worth sharing. I needed to get my hair cut while I was here in Lisbon.
To be fair to you, you get your haircut like once a year, so you were due.
And like, you know, pandemic, and so anyway, I was really in desperate need of a haircut, and I thought, am I gonna be brave and go to a salon here in Lisbon? And I opted for yes. Loved this salon, this beautiful old building, and they hooked it up. Did my color, I was so excited about it. It was very vibrant. He starts to blow dry out my hair, and I think to myself, I can't believe I have done okay. I'm gonna make it out of here without like some weird hairdo, even despite the language barrier. And then we go to style my hair, and he just holds up like a triple barrel curling iron and is like, do you want to look like a mermaid? And I said, yes, I do, sure.
Who says no to that?
Sure.
Even if I was getting my hair cut, which, come on, I would say yes.
I said, sure, I'm in Lisbon. I will just hand over the trust.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I walked out of that salon with my eyes as big as saucers because I will just say it's not the style I would have chosen for myself.
No, good for someone else, maybe not for you, but we wore it out for the night. You know, we kept the mermaid hair for a night so we could enjoy it.
I came back to the apartment, Jason and I had a good laugh about my mermaid hair, and then he said, well, you know you're wearing it to dinner, and I said, of course I am.
Yeah.
So that was a fun thing that we did while in Lisbon.
One of probably our favorite thing that we went and saw and did, I think, was the Castelo de São Jorge. Castelo de São Jorge. Again, we're trying our best here.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you so much. It's really, really nice. This castle is set up on a hill. It's kind of one of the highest viewpoints in the city of Lisbon, but we went at sunset just to make it even that much better. And we probably saw 10% of the castle grounds.
Right.
One of us got distracted by something not even historical, no building related. We'll roll a clip here of something that may have distracted one of us.
No. Oh my god. You have to be kidding me. What is this one doing over here? Hold on. Okay, so Jason doesn't know I'm recording this, but like I had to record my real-time reaction. I didn't know there was gonna be peacocks here. We're not zoo people. But when I tell you that I just had like an out-of-body experience hearing the sound of a peacock, if you've never heard the sound of a male peacock within 20 feet of you, it sounded like the loudest dying cat that I've ever heard. I was like, is that a human calling for help? No, it's a cat dying. No, it's a peacock.
Okay, here's the thing. You didn't tell me peacocks were gonna be at this castle.
Yeah, I did watch a video before we went just to kind of get an idea of the castle. You apparently didn't do this. And yes, peacocks are a big part of this.
I was embarrassed by how excited I was by it, but it honestly made the whole thing.
That peacock mating call worked on you. It really did. But anyway, it is really worth going up there. You can take a tuk-tuk, you can take an Uber. We just walked the hill. It was a pretty arduous walk all the way up, but it was worth it because you get up there and the views are just breathtaking. You can just kind of sit and relax. So we definitely recommend seeing the castle.
Finally, definitely recommend if you come to Lisbon, do a food tour. So we opted to do a food tour. Actually, the first week we were here, which we try to do them kind of at the beginning of when we land in a city because you get such an amazing experience, not only with a really great tour guide, Elsa, who was our tour guide.
From your friend in Lisbon.
From your friend in Lisbon, food tours was incredible. Very historical tour, but more with a focus on the food, but still she shared so much about the language and the history and took us all over different parts of the city. It was incredible. We got to try little bites at like 5 or 6 different spots. We got to have a little ginginha.
A little sip of ginginha.
Which is the sour cherry wine. Got to have some cheese and quince at a little local food mart. Got to have an amazing, end the night with that potato and kale.
Caldo verde
soup.
With the chorizo bread.
Chorizo bread.
That chorizo bread, you just...
So good.
You just want to eat the whole thing.
So yeah, that was one of our favorite things we did.
Absolutely. If you're gonna come to Lisbon, we definitely recommend doing a food tour. Your friend in Lisbon, no sponsor here, just really recommend them. Elsa was fantastic. Alex was also very helpful. So those are the things that we did while in Lisbon.
about where we stayed in Lisbon, Portugal.
We stayed at 2 Airbnbs while we were here, each for about 2 weeks-ish, and the first one was right smack dab on the Praça de Comércio. We were basically on the opposite side of it, so we didn't see it, but you could definitely hear it. We had the accordion playing every night.
I liked it.
The place itself was really awesome. It was modern, the building was renovated, and it was a little bit smaller in person, but it was definitely big enough to live in. I mean, we were there for, again, 2 weeks, and it had 2 bathrooms, a full king-size bed, which was great for us, fully functioning kitchen, just all the amenities you could want from a place.
2 things I especially appreciated were the balcony, because you could go outside. I even worked out there a little bit. It was a little cold because earlier when we stayed there was in January, but I really loved just being able to get fresh air, and then also the bathtub. I really liked having a bathtub.
And we are working while we're traveling for this full year, so we set up the dining room table to be our work area, and then we would clear it off and maybe have a meal there. But yeah, we got a bunch of Uber Eats orders and just really hunkered down and had a good time being in this first Airbnb.
So for our second Airbnb, we packed up all of our things and we went the very arduous 5-minute journey.
Oh no, 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes. It was, I mean, 27 steps away. It's like, I can almost see it. This is our second place. I can almost see it. It's so close.
It was just silly the way that it worked out because we didn't mean to pick a place that was right next to our previous Airbnb. It's just, for all of the amenities that we wanted, it just happened to be in this location. I will say, even though you're sort of right in the middle of everything touristy with the Praça do Comércio, both Airbnbs were kind of on these more secluded streets, the entrance was, so it felt very quiet, it felt safe, and it felt like a refuge kind of from the city every time you'd go out and you'd come back.
Yeah, one of our favorite things about this second one is the big open ceilings. Now, you might be able to hear a little bit of echo because of that in here when we're recording, but it was really nice to have the couches, the space, the big dining room area to be able to set up our laptops when we were working. And the kitchen, I think, of this place was actually a little bit more functional for us, just because we did cook a bunch of meals. We didn't eat out every single meal. We could have, but we
wanted to.
Definitely didn't. We're going to talk a lot about food, don't worry. But yeah, it had 2 separate bedrooms, one of which became a little bit of a full-on closet, which is okay.
I just thought to myself, I brought all these clothes. The best way for me to wear them is to be able to see all of them. So I just like sprawled all my things out.
Yeah, and again, this place had like a tiny balcony, but definitely some windows you could open up and get some fresh air and hear the construction. But yeah, it just really worked out. Both these Airbnbs ended up being on the 4th floor, so you didn't have anybody above us, and they were just really great.
I will say there were a couple of things that we had to get used to with sort of apartment living, which we're very not used to. And one thing specifically was working out like how to get packages, what happens when someone rings your doorbell. So one evening, a gentleman rang our doorbell, which is really like a call box, and was outside of our door. He was a food delivery man.
We did not order food.
We did not order food.
Yeah, I looked at Caroline and I was like, did you order anything off Uber Eats and not tell me? She was like, no, did you? I was like, no, that would have been typical, but we didn't.
And Jason was like, well, should I open it? And I was like, well, I'm still like in the mindset of, you don't open the door to a stranger in a place that is not your home. So I just said, well, just tell him through the door that we didn't order any food. The man did not speak English. He, I guess, only spoke Portuguese, which is totally,
his country.
Totally
We're the
fine.
ones who are the foreigners.
You would expect that, but was not getting the memo that we didn't order the food.
Talking through the door.
And also couldn't really hear. So I'm trying to figure out how I can communicate with this man to let him know. And there's a call box right next to the door. So I'm thinking if I press a button, it'll like have an intercom to him outside of our door.
Yeah.
I press a button that just has a mouth by it, and I thought, that seems right.
Yeah.
I press that button, up pops a screen on the call box, and I just go, excuse me, do you speak English?
Yeah.
Thinking that I could try to converse with this man outside of our door. Up pops the camera outside of our building, not outside of our door. We're on the 4th floor, outside of the building. So imagine just you're passing by a building, right? And some lady, some American lady through the call box just goes, excuse me, do you speak English?
And a guy literally turned around and said,
yeah. I called a person on the street and he was like, yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm looking through the people and the poor Uber Eats guy is just like looking around. He's like, what is happening? He just leaves,
but
which
it
is great.
gets even better because the man off the street goes, yeah. And I just start talking because it still has not clicked yet that I'm talking to someone on the street and not the man. And I'm like, we have a man at our door and we didn't order food and he's here to drop off food. And then the stranger just goes, okay.
You can imagine just a person walking along the street, just hearing this lady just yelling out of like a small screen. Oh, it was ridiculous.
This was like our 2nd or 3rd night here. I have since learned how to use the call box, how to get packages. Like,
these are things we have to learn though while we're traveling this year.
all you foodies out there what we ate in Lisbon, Portugal. Quick caveat here, you might notice there's not that much traditional Portuguese food on this list of our favorite restaurants, and we absolutely do not mean to offend any of our Portuguese viewers. We are not huge seafood people, and the cuisine is a little bit seafood forward, so we opted to go for restaurants that were a little bit more in our wheelhouse.
First, let's jump into breakfast because most important meal of the day. Deer Breakfast is the breakfast spot that we loved the most, and it was just right up the hill from where we're staying. Just a really adorable looking space. Big, huge, high ceilings, bricks, just some fun architecture, some really good juices that we had, some good pastries, and really good dishes that just felt like you were getting a good hearty breakfast every day.
Yeah, there's a couple of different locations, so we'll have to put the location that we loved on screen, but absolutely phenomenal. One of the huge benefits of our first Airbnb is that it was in the same building as an amazing coffee shop called Fabrica Coffee Roasters, and I'll let you take away on the coffee because I know it's your thing.
There's so many good things I could say about the coffee culture here in Lisbon, but Fabrica was great. It is a coffee roaster, so they have multiple locations around the city. The one downstairs, Manuel, was the barista and the manager of the store. Absolutely fantastic. Manuel, big shout out to you if you find this video. You made wonderful V60 pour overs for me about 13 times in the 2 weeks that we were there. Also ground up some beans so I could take them home and make AeroPress here in our Airbnb. So Fabrica, definitely high on the list of coffee shops. Next on the list, while you were becoming a mermaid, I found another coffee shop which is a little bit further away from the Praça area down here by the river, and it was called Bloom Coffee Room. This actually, I believe, is the best pour over coffee I've ever had in my entire life. And you can attest to the fact that I have had hundreds of pour overs at different coffee shops.
That's a big thing.
Pour over coffee lover. So would highly recommend. There's also a really cute little flower shop right in Eating, hence the Bloom. Picked up a couple bags of beans there as well. Also some delicious treats, just a really fun environment. Also, if you sit by the window where I did, you get to watch the traffic go by and it just feels very European.
Moving on to our favorite lunch spots. One of the first restaurants that we ate at was called Nicolau Lisbon.
Yes.
And it was this amazing outdoor cafe that had incredible, I had the burgers were really good. The little homemade sweet potato chips were fantastic. This was the first lunch experience we had where we were sitting outside, taking in the city, hearing conversations in different languages around us, and it just really felt like that perfect lunchtime casual eating experience in Lisbon.
Hey, remember that best pour over coffee I've ever had in my entire life at Bloom Coffee Room? Well, directly across the street, I kept seeing people walking with these paper long looking things, and I was like, are people just getting baguettes?
What was it?
I mean, it's long, you know, it's like a paper, anyway. Sure. Are people just getting baguettes? I was like, I'll just get a baguette, that's fine. So I walked across the street and I found out that they were not baguettes, they were actually ham and cheese sandwiches. So this is, I'm gonna try and say it, prosciutto e queijo. So it's just ham and cheese on a baguette, made fresh every morning. I grabbed one, I walked down the street, taking bites of it. It was delicious. I ended up finishing it by the river. I shared a little bit with a seagull. I actually didn't. I wanted it all for myself because it was so good. But this was a really good, simple bite just to grab and go, and we'd heard a lot of people do this in Lisbon. Another lunch spot that I think was your favorite.
Absolute favorite.
I think it's my favorite too, just because of how cool it was. When we were over at the river seeing all of the monuments, you found Village Food. And this place was really cool, kind of hard to find, but once you know where it is, it's pretty easy to see because it's a bunch of shipping containers and old decommissioned double-decker buses. Like the kitchen is in one of the buses. Just such an interesting experience.
I kept saying it was like an adult jungle gym because there's all these staircases and you get to like go in between all the buses and the shipping containers. The food was incredible. The cocktails were great. It was just a really unique and completely one-of-a-kind experience.
Would highly recommend it just for the very unique experience, like you said. Wow, that's a really important thing I brought to that. You're welcome. If I were to tell you that one of the best restaurants that we ate was at the top of a department store, would you think I was lying to you? Well, I'm not, because that was Terrazzo Editorial, and this was fantastic. It's on the 8th floor of a department store called Pollock's, and it overlooks a straight shot of the Santa Justa lift. So we got there at night. We were pretty much the only people there because we're Americans and we get places early. We sat at the table right along the railing and just were able to take in Lisbon at night. We ordered a bunch of wine, a bunch of food, just so many things. It was so delicious and so enjoyable, and it really set the stage for every meal after that had to live up to the hype of this place.
So Terrazzo Editorial was very romantic, I would say.
Yeah, I thought so.
But this second restaurant was called By the Wine, which was another favorite of ours. And it was more like, it was romantic, but more like fun first date, lively kind of environment.
There were a good amount more people there too, which made it feel that way. But I went on a date with a mermaid this night, if you remember the mermaid story.
This was the night from but then I got my hair done. So I did go out with my mermaid hair. I was feeling myself. The coolest thing about By the Wine is that they have this entire ceiling that's built out of wine bottles. And it's just this like very visually stunning environment. The tapas were amazing.
We are tapas people. We need to learn this about ourselves. We just love tapas. A big shout out to my friend Travis, who actually recommended By the Wine. It was just a short walk, as pretty much everything is in downtown Lisbon, and we loved it. We would highly recommend it.
Speaking of lively spots, if you are looking for a very hip, very delicious place, Boabao is one that we would also recommend. Definitely like Asian fusion style food, but this was one where we just literally ordered like one of everything, every section on the menu, and we just let our server kind of guide the way, and every single thing we tasted was incredible.
You also know this place is good because most places in Lisbon at 6:30, if that's right when they open, there's no one there. We encountered this many times, as we mentioned. We got there at 6:30 and the place was half full. By the time we were ordering our first things, the place was full to the max. So Boabao definitely is a place you want to get to early.
I did want to mention, I ordered a cocktail recommended by my server, and it showed up and it was the brightest green color that you've ever seen. And was
Video
just
doesn't do it justice.
Completely different than anything I've ever tasted. He was trying to tell me what it tasted like, and he said, tastes like a cookie, and he was right. It tasted like a cookie.
We're not trying to take up all your time here to recommend so many different restaurants, but another rooftop spot in case you want to just try something else, or maybe one of them was really busy. Java Rooftop was a favorite. Really nice view overlooking the river, so it's a different view. They have indoor seating that's really plush, and then the outdoor lounge area is really cool. So Java Rooftop definitely gets a mention here in our dinner spots. And you had the flaming dessert, which who can beat a flaming dessert?
Had to. Finally, we have to talk about cavallerisa. I hope I'm saying that right.
I don't care if you're saying it wrong. That's how good the restaurant was.
This meal we actually picked out on a whim to do after our coaching session. As we mentioned, we're working as we travel, and we do a monthly coaching session for all of our members. We were at a co-working space nearby, and so we tried to pick out a restaurant that was walking distance. We show up, there's nobody in the restaurant, like Jason said, because we're, you know, on the earlier schedule. And this meal was just so unexpectedly delicious. The love and care that was put into every plate of food that we had. One dish that's just a standout for me was this, what on the menu is called chicken tortellini. But when you tasted it, it tasted like chicken and dumplings from like when I was a kid. Like I haven't had chicken and dumplings in probably like over a decade, and it just brought back this like wave of memories for me. It was just really something I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's definitely on one of the more expensive restaurants that you're gonna go to in Lisbon, but it was well worth it. And if you're only gonna do one, there are tons to choose from, but this was our favorite kind of like higher end restaurant of the entire trip.
Rate Lisbon on the whole.
I believe we have an arbitrary rating scale we're going to use.
Well, you got to pick your rating scale.
Yeah, so we're going to do a peacock rating scale here.
Lisbon.
For Lisbon specifically. Okay. So out of 10 peacocks, what do you give it? And remember how attracted you were to that peacock at the castle.
I think it's 9 out of 10 peacocks, honestly. I couldn't have picked a better first spot.
Yeah, I would go 9.5, just leaving like a little bit of room because it was the first place that we came to in Europe.
Also, I will say the reason it doesn't get a 10 from me is because we're just not big city people. And it is Lisbon is definitely a city.
Yeah.
So.
Now, 3 words that you would use to describe Lisbon. These can be 3 words collectively if you want. Yeah.
What's like a weather word? Because it's just
fresh.
Fresh.
Okay.
Fresh.
That's the fresh weather. Okay. Colorful.
I love that.
A lot of colors. There's a lot of pinks and yellows and greens and blues throughout the city.
Welcoming.
Yeah.
I just think like all the people we talk to, a lot of them speak English in addition to Portuguese and other languages. Every person we've talked to has been so friendly, so warm, so curious and interested. Like, I just think it's a very welcoming city.
You know how when you watch a video about a city like Lisbon and you hear people say, it's fresh, it's colorful, it's welcoming.
This is their new tourism campaign.
It gets 9.5 peacocks out of 10, and those are the 3 words, and that's why you should come to Lisbon.
We hope you enjoyed the video. That's what we did, where we stayed, and what we ate here in Lisbon, Portugal. It was the perfect first stop for our full year of travel. Now the question though is, where are we headed next?
Here's a sneak peek. You can leave your comment below. Where do you think we're going next? What country in Europe?
Give them a clue.
Yeah, you're gonna get a clue. Yeah, it's a clue. There's no peacocks though.